What'd you have for dinner last night, Laura?
I made soup. So I don't know what to call it, but it was like, a bunch of vegetables and beef and stuff.
Bunch of stuff in a pot.
Yeah.
Nutrients in a pot.
Yeah.
Is it soup season already?
It's 40 something degrees out right now.
No.
Yeah.
But it's morning. What
It's morning.
was like the high in New York?
Yesterday the high was 71 or 72.
That's a pretty nice day.
It was very nice. But after I didn't eat till after football practice, and it was cold when we were there.
Yeah. 70 in the day is like the high is like, yeah, it's definitely by evening you're like, I want soup.
Yeah.
But we're not there yet. But I just saw an article that was saying that everywhere maybe, but it was also like the East Coast is fall is feeling like summer.
Not here.
And it's just like bleeding right into it. Well, that's good. I'm happy for you.
I mean, do you mean this year or you mean the last couple of years?
This year.
No. This is like normal this time.
That's good. Yeah, I read it was like for, fall, pumpkin. It was something like pumpkin spice season is upon us, yet many people are still feeling like
it's like
the
that
summer heat. And
it's always like that in September. Every September I expect it to cool off and it doesn't. You want to get out your fall clothes and all of that, but it's always warm. It's always 80.
I don't want my fall clothes I'm not lying, and I don't know how to change it. Every year of my adult life, when fall comes, and the same thing happens when spring comes, I don't know what to wear. I feel like I have nothing. Summer, I'm good. I know what to put on. Spring, I don't want to be cold, but I know at some point I might want to take off a layer, and I hate layers, and I don't wear jeans. And then fall comes, and everybody's like, jeans and boots and sweaters. I'm like, none of those things I want to wear.
It just sounded like you were going to make your own country song. Jeans and boots and
jeans and boots and pumpkin spice. Should I do it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Next time.
We should ask ChatGPT to make us a country song that includes boots and jeans. And
I can do it myself.
Oh, okay.
I guarantee it will be at least as good as the one we saw. Made by ChatGPT.
Yeah. I mean,
can't guarantee it'll be better, but
that was really the only reason I found that funny was because it's just funny that's what AI thinks country music sounds like.
Well, it is. It was funny. I think it was around that time I was telling my husband the story in the car, and I was laughing about it, and he was kind of shaking his head, and he was like, he's like, that's not even what country songs are about. I was like, almost all of them are about like trucks and like love and like down home simple life. And I was like, and it's comical because all of these people are rich out their butts and like do not experience that kind of life. And he was like, I don't think that's true. And then we just turned on the radio and it was a country song. And I don't remember what it was, but it was like we were listening to the lyrics and we were just laughing. And even my daughter was picking up on it because it was like exactly that. It was like, small town life. I've worked real hard. I come home and your beautiful face is looking at me and now I'm going to go get some corn. I love country music. Like I sit in my house while I'm working and I ask, who, I'm not going to say her name because she will respond, to play I Heart Country. And I like country, but
oh, you do?
Funny. I do actually.
Picture you listening to country music.
I love country.
I have always hated country until I met Wayne, and then because I used to make fun of it because of the exact things you just said. It's just ridiculous. But I've learned to like it. But only I'm very like particular about what songs or whatever. So
I feel like we're so opposite from what our stereotypes are.
I know, right?
Right?
Yeah.
Welcome to the Deadlifts and Pizza podcast. No BS fitness and nutrition. I'm Jamie. This is Laura.
Hey.
So you had soup for dinner, and I want to tell you what I had for dinner. Not because it's interesting, but because it is simple, and I feel like that's what people need is simplicity. I had farro in the crock pot, which is a grain, not the crock pot. It was in the Instapot. And then I had salmon I had it one of my favorite ways, which is brown sugar and chili powder mixed together. And you rub it on top with some salt. It's really good. And then just like frozen broccoli sauteed in a pan.
Nice.
Yup.
Simple. Except
Simple.
I don't really know what farro is, so.
I can't believe you still. How long have we been friends and you still don't know what farro is?
No, I don't.
It's kind of like barley. You know what barley is, right?
Yeah.
You know how
I
barley
don't eat
almost
it.
looks like an oatmeal piece of oatmeal, but it's fat.
Yeah.
That's what farro is, except I don't know if it's the same grain. I don't actually think it is, but it's got like the husk on it still. So when you cook it up, it's kind of fat, like a barley piece of barley is, but it's kind of chewy and oh, it's so good.
Is it gluten-free?
That's a really good question. Is it gluten free?
I don't care. I'm just
Oats are
asking 'cause
gluten
some
free.
people care about that.
No, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter, Laura. But farro gluten free? Question mark. No, farro is not gluten free because it's a type of wheat. So why is
Made out of
oatmeal gluten free?
Because it's not wheat.
It is. Obviously, quinoa is gluten free. Buckwheat. I'm going to type in oatmeal.
It's not.
Is
It
oatmeal gluten free?
It is.
Pure uncontaminated oats are gluten free. It's not wheat?
I
What
don't
are
think so.
what are oats?
Oats.
Google.
They're just oats.
What are oats if not wheat? Oats are a nutrient-rich food associated. Okay. Are oats from wheat? Is the next question. Many people think oats come from wheat, but this is not the case. While oats and wheat both come from a cereal grain grass, they are of a different species. Oats are also gluten-free, so they're safe to eat. Oh, we learned so much. I did.
I mean, I already knew that they weren't from wheat, but
Okay, now I know. Oats are not wheat. Farro's wheat.
okay.
There you go. That's the answer from now on. So what is farro? It's wheat. Oats are
wheat.
not. Anyway, not gluten-free. Very delicious. Very good. Very full of fiber. Good protein. I like it a lot.
Thanks
I like
for
it a lot.
This grains lesson.
Yep. I'm a little embarrassed. Might need to cut
you-
this out.
Because you thought oats were. Well, it said it's common. A lot of people think they are. Well,
But I shouldn't. This is my job. It's just not. I should know. To be honest, I'd never thought about it until that very moment.
Me neither. I just thought it was an oat. Like, I just like, is oat a plant? So I
What
should
are
be embarrassed too, but I'm not.
Oats are oats. I just want to know, if you're listening right now, I need you to comment and let me know if you knew that oats were not wheat. There we go. I need to know. All right, fitness
comments.
nutrition stuff. You got anything?
Actually, I really, really don't. I can think of some things because we were talking about, the quad program and how you can like change programs to customize them for yourself or whatever. We can always go back on that if we can't think of anything else.
I got some things.
Okay.
Well, I got 2 questions we can get to. But I was talking to, so I was at Taekwondo last night, and I was talking to my friend who does it with me. Well, he's the one who got me to do it. And we chit chat about fitness and stuff because he lifts and he's a beast. I've told you about how much of a beast he is in Taekwondo. He's a beast in the gym as well. Form is good and all that stuff. So we always like chit chat about stuff. He'll tell me about his like PRs and stuff like that. And he was telling me yesterday, he was like, yeah, so I don't remember what he got. He got some ridiculous number on squats, like 385 or something like that. And I was telling him about the deadlift program that we did and what I got up to and how the thought of just doing it again just still feels exhausting. Like I just feel like I need more time until I really push like strength on something, especially a deadlift or a squat. But he was saying that he's like, yeah, deadlift is one of those, it's hard to, once you really hit a PR, it's kind of hard to incrementally like to get much more than that. Like it just feels, he was saying that for him, it feels like once he gets like a PR, getting much higher than that feels exhausting. And he was also saying, like, with a deadlift, which I would argue that this is true with any, this is 100% true with any lift, you can't necessarily get close to that again. You have to just go over. So like if I did, you did, what did you do? 280 or 290, something crazy?
280.
You can't get close to 280. Like if you want to go beyond 280, you need to do like 260, 250, and then you need to try for like 295, you know what I mean? Or whatever it was. 285. What'd you do?
280.
280. So you'd have to just go to like 285, right?
I actually disagree with that. I find that deadlift is the one that I have to really warm up and like incrementally raise it. So a squat, I would kind of feel that way, or bench definitely, because I'll get tired out. So if I did bench and then I would, so the most I did was 130, right? So if I did like 125, like even something close to that, I wouldn't be able to do 135, where it was with deadlift, like when I did the PR, I did 275 and then I did 280. And the 280, like I said, felt easier than the 275.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But that's interesting because usually, from what I've learned about programming for, really pushing strength and stuff like that, there's like a formula where you, in all of your sets that you're working up to your top set, it's like you minus the bar and then you divide the total amount by 4 and then you add that amount onto it, but you never actually do the last quarter of it. Does that make sense? So if it's if you've got the bar, which is 45 pounds, and let's just easy numbers, you put 100 pounds on it.
Yeah.
And you want to try to do, let's say 95. You want to try to do 100 pounds. Take the bar away, 45, divide 100 by 4, that's 25. So every time you do it, you do the bar plus 25.
Got it.
And then the next time you do the bar plus 50. And then you do the bar plus 75. And then the next time you go for it, you do the bar plus the 25 and then some, the last quarter and then some. So if I'm going to try to go for 110, I would do the bar plus. But the last I would go would be the bar plus 25, which is like a quarter of the weight that you put on away from the weight you're going to try.
That makes sense. The way I usually just do it by percentages. So I'll do like 40, 60, 80, 90, 95. And then you have to go. You can't you don't want to waste energy doing a previous PR. So I wouldn't do like 7, like if I did it again, I wouldn't do 280 and then try to do 290. But for me, for deadlift, I have to get close. Otherwise my body's like, what is this weight? It's just too much weight.
Yeah. No, I think it definitely depends on the person. It depends on the exercise and the situation.
Yeah.
Because in that one too, you weren't necessarily planning to go for 280 that day. You did 275 and you were like, let me try it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. I tried again Monday to hit a new PR.
Oh, cool.
But I didn't.
Oh, you tried. I thought you said you were going to try. Okay.
No, I tried. And
good try.
Not happening. Not happening.
What did you try?
285. I did 260 was before the 285, so I didn't get like super close. I even ate something before.
Wow.
Because you were telling me about, and I felt like crap, by the way. I do not feel good if I eat before. I had half a banana. That's all. And I felt like, I don't know, like food is not supposed to be in there when I'm working out. It has to be like an hour before. I can't do it like right before.
Right.
And it's just too hard when I wake up. I would have to wake up way too early just to eat and just sit around until I work out.
Interesting.
But
it brought up.
Go ahead. My sleep just hasn't been that
Mm-hmm.
great, and my food, I haven't been eating enough food, and so this is supposed to be my strong week though, so I was gonna go for it. But I'm gonna go again. I'm gonna try again.
Yeah.
Either Thursday or Friday.
All right, let me know.
Yeah.
I don't really care.
I know you don't, but
you should tell me anyway.
The only reason I'm talking about it is because you were talking about deadlifting.
I do care, just for the record. I care very much. But it brought up a thought too, because he was saying that people will ask him, like, how do I get up to that amount of weight? Like, how do I be able to do that? And so we were chit-chatting about that a little bit. And I feel like I've talked about strength training kind of being in like two phases, but I feel like it's really three, because I feel like phase one is when somebody's either first discovering it or they think they already do and they're in the gym using dumbbells and they're using weights and stuff, but they don't really have the concept of like really how or why to follow a program or really progressive overload and how to utilize that and really what their actual ability is, right? So they're kind of toying around with the weights, and you can do that for years. You can go to classes, you can go to a gym, you can do all these things and toy around with weights for years and never actually like make a ton of progress. And then one of my favorite things is building that bridge for somebody to what I call like phase two, which is like when you do get on a program and actually follow progressive overload and percentages of 1 rep max and all of these things to actually discover like what your true strength is. And that's really cool, right? Because then you see people like make a ton of progress, metabolism, all that good stuff. But then I feel like what we were talking about, my friend and I last night at Taekwondo, what we were talking about was this like almost like phase three, because then you're good, you're in it, right? But I was telling him, I was like, I feel like people, once they've hit a weight that truly feels very hard and challenging, they kind of hit a ceiling because they're not really sure how to progress beyond that. And that is like this new little bridge that you can like build for people, right? To get into like, okay, now we have to like optimize a whole bunch of crap, right? Like we have to look at your training program, got to use those little mini plates, those little micro, like 1.5, 2.5 pound plates on each side. You have to put, either have somebody pushing you or push yourself to be like, I think this is my max, but I'm going to throw on those little plates anyway and then do it like that. And that it's like kind of a scary thought. So the other thing we were saying was that your form has to be really, really good. Like you have to have in that stage 2, you have to have kind of perfected everything. Your form has to be awesome. Your intensity, all that stuff's got to be in place. And then you can really kind of start pushing it a little bit, but people don't really know how, right? So anyway, that was just like the general like chit chat we were having. And I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that like phase 3 for me was actually like very recent, because before I wasn't lifting that heavy. I mean, I could, I just wasn't with my like, I was going close to failure with like smaller things, but not the big things.
I mean, you could also say, like, I'm like, I came up with this 3-phase system. It's also just beginner, intermediate, and advanced. Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's really what it is. But crossing that bridge over into those like different next stages is pretty interesting.
Yeah. Because when you like lift a heavy deadlift, that, you know what the reason was with deadlift though, that it wasn't because I was like afraid to lift so heavy. It's because I've always done it, with the pronated grip. I never did the switch grip. So my grip was my limiting factor, which my grip is really strong. I do all of my warm-up sets and everything. I don't switch until I actually need to, because I've always done it that way. And then when I switched it and started doing it that way, I'm like, wow, I could do so much more weight. So I think that was that. But
I even use switch grip for warm-ups. I almost can't not use it.
I don't.
And I wonder if I have like a imbalance because of it.
You probably do, because you probably do the same side every time, don't you?
Every time.
Yeah.
I try to I'll remind myself to like switch it up.
Yeah.
Even RDLs. I use a switch grip even for RDLs.
I do now, because I was doing like almost 200 pounds the one day. And I'm like, this is really heavy. I need to switch it up.
Well, yeah. And you're not putting the weight down. It's just hanging.
Yeah.
The whole time.
Yeah. Yeah. But I like it. I like to do it without that as much as possible, so I can work on my grip, and then when I need to, I switch it. But with RDLs, I do it the same way every time. I don't think I would get as much of an imbalance from that than I would with a deadlift.
Do you use liquid chalk?
I have like regular chalk.
So chalk of some sort.
Yeah.
I can't not use it ever since I got chalk. I can't not use it.
I don't really like it too much, but in the summertime I need it because I sweat more. But in the wintertime, my hands are dry anyway. I don't know if it makes a huge difference. Definitely need it for like pull-ups and things. Yeah.
Cool. Want to do a couple questions?
Sure.
Awesome. So the first one is one that we didn't get to last week.
Yeah.
Um, I was trying to decide if how similar these two are. Anyway, the question was, I still want to lose more body fat. So this is from somebody who has already lost body fat, is relatively lean, is in a really good spot for it's a woman and mom, all that stuff. She's in a really good spot, but she wants to lose more body fat, but also wants to build more muscle. She said, I think that I'm past the newbie gains phase, but I'm not sure which I should do first. I kind of want to eat at a calorie deficit, but I also really want to build more muscle. I want to have that arm definition so I look like I work out. Any suggestions? And she asked this like 2 weeks ago. So this is relevant because the time of year matters as well, I believe.
I was going to say, if it's right now, I would say focus on building muscle if it's right now, just because of the time of year, because you're going to want to go and do a cut in the spring time, summertime, whatever. And if you cut now, you don't want to, you might end up being in a cut more of the year than you would want to be. So I would focus on building muscle right now. It definitely depends on the time of year and where you are in life.
Yeah, for sure. I 100% agree. I don't even know if I have much to add. That's my exact, it's September. It was the end of August but still, I was like, it's September. Build muscle, do all, you have plenty of time to cut later. And again, depending on where you're at. So I think if it's somebody who, this is somebody who's been doing this pretty consistently for a year and a half, 2 years. I think if you are kind of getting started or are kind of still in a beginner stage, even if you don't feel like you're a beginner, but you really kind of are, because just what we talked about, you haven't really crossed that bridge into intermediate yet, what you need to do in order to be, which by the way, one of the things you need to do in order to cross that bridge into intermediate is eat at maintenance or a surplus for a relatively long period of time so that you can actually know what it feels like to actually fuel your muscle building journey. That's like part of it.
Yeah.
So for somebody that's like, but still, I would say for somebody who's kind of more in the beginner stage and or has like a lot of body fat to lose relative to their size for health purposes, like we're not talking about vanity weight loss. We're talking about like it actually would improve their health markers to have less body fat. That kind of person can get away with eating at a technical deficit and still be able to build muscle. And it would be better to get the weight off, right? But if it's somebody who's not really in that position and just wants to lose more body fat, they don't necessarily need to. It's more vanity, and you already kind of have an understanding of crossing that bridge into intermediate and eating to fuel and everything. Now's the best time of the year to really take advantage of that.
Yeah, agree.
Cool. The next one, this is a good one, and this is one that comes up a lot. So this is 100% not a unique question, but it's a really good thing to talk about. Is it possible to get results without tracking? It triggers my food obsession.
I'm sorry. I will answer in a second. My abs just started cramping.
Really?
Yeah.
My husband's do that. I've never experienced that.
Oh, it hurts so bad, and I don't know why.
It just out of the blue?
Yeah. It sometimes it happens if I sit up and I like if I'm laying on the bed and I sit up and use my stomach muscles to do that. But other times it's just random. I don't know.
Is it going away?
Not really. That's why I keep doing this.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I have to sit like this with my boobs out like this to make it stop. Okay, what was the question? So
your boobs are down. Did it go away?
It did.
Okay.
Literally. If you see me go like this, that's what's happening.
That happens to my husband, but it only happens when he hasn't been exercising for a while and he does core, like when he does sit-ups or crunches, he's just like, all of a sudden on the floor.
Yeah. That's why I hate crunches. I rarely do them because even if I do them consistently, it just always happens. I get cramps in my
I wonder why that is. I wonder why some people get them and some people don't, because I've never had that happen.
I don't know.
That's so interesting. Okay,
I literally blanked on the question.
Is it possible to get results without tracking?
Oh,
it triggers my food obsession.
It is. It's definitely easier to get results when you're tracking. It also depends on same thing of like where you are in your, you know, in your fitness journey. Because if you're somebody who has a lot of weight to lose, it's probably going to be a lot easier to get results without tracking than for somebody who's closer. Sorry, closer to
Are you
that.
cramping again?
Yeah, closer to that goal. Because, sorry, this is the worst.
Boobs out.
Because when you get closer, it becomes a lot more challenging, and you have to be a little bit more particular. So if you have, you know, only 10 pounds to lose, it's going to be a little bit. It's a lot easier to track and get that weight off. But you can do things like just focusing on getting protein in all your meals and eating whole foods, and you know, we do like the plate method where you have your protein and veggies and carbs and all of that on the plate. You can talk.
It's still cramping?
It is.
That's crazy.
It'll keep coming back and coming back.
Really? Fun. Fun for
You
you.
have to like push them out.
It's like stretch them. You can stand up if you need to.
I think I'm okay.
I won't judge you.
It's not as bad as it can be. Sometimes I want to cry. So
Really?
yeah.
Jeez.
It hurts
You look like
really
you're dancing over there.
I have good dance moves.
Not as good as they were in my dream that one time.
Yeah, that's right.
But we don't need to bring that up. It was not sexual because I just made it sound very vulgar. It was just Laura wearing low-cut tight jeans, which she would never wear anyway, like dancing. Anyway. Tracking. Yeah, or not tracking rather. Yeah, this is a super nuanced thing as like you were kind of touching on there a little bit anyway. Yes, it is totally possible to get results without tracking. And I think in a lot of cases, it's better to get results without tracking. I think for somebody who, like you said, has a lot of weight to lose, and a lot of times the reason the person has a lot of weight to lose, a lot of times, not all the time, is oftentimes connected to their nutrition or maybe like lack of nutritional knowledge or application. And so for this type of person, not only can you see it results in terms of weight loss, that's a whole other thing too. Not only can you see results in terms of weight loss without tracking but you also can really improve like your mental state around food by not tracking and just making sure you're including protein and fiber and learning how to actually eat whole foods in proper amounts. And a lot of times what that will do, because of the thermic effect of whole foods, because of just the way that your body digests and absorbs nutrients, your hormone balancing, your gut microbiome, there's a whole host of like benefits of eating 80 to 90% whole foods that is going to aid in like weight loss in general, regardless of like counting calories. What's going to happen is you're probably going to end up actually eating less calories than you were before, even though the volume of the food is higher. So you're eating a higher volume of food because you're eating mostly whole foods at proper intervals. Yeah. So that's like one reason why tracking without trying to lose weight without tracking, that's a way that it could work really, really well. I would even argue though, for some people, so when we talk about like triggering food obsession too. So this person, I don't know much about the person that asked this. I don't know any background on them. I don't know if they have a lot of weight to lose. I don't really know where they're at. But I do have a background in like eating disorder, disordered eating habits, etc. And I can say that tracking was one of the things that helped me completely overcome it. And it wasn't just tracking itself, it was tracking with the right mindset. So I had tracked or followed different diets before, but I had tracked using like MyFitnessPal, tracking calories and all that stuff with the same mindset that I approached any other like diet or restrictive mindset around food, which was, oh my gosh, stay under this number, that's all that matters, like this restriction mindset, instead of approaching tracking with like an educational mindset. And I reached a point, and it didn't actually have anything to do with tracking. It all kind of happened accidentally, where I started to view tracking for education purposes because I wanted to see, well, how much protein am I getting? How many carbs am I getting? And I stopped looking at that calorie number. And when I started really paying attention to the amount of food I was eating and just seeing what I was naturally doing, using tracking as a tool, it helped transform the way I view food in general. I started seeing food as, fuel for my workouts and nutrition and et cetera, instead of seeing it as like, only to affect my aesthetics. And I never really had a lot of weight to lose. I was never in that position. So tracking really, really helped me gain a handle on nutrition and what my body actually needed. That being said, tracking now still very much can trigger those things in me. So I have to be careful. So I get where this person's coming from. But at the same time, what I usually say to people is, have you ever actually tried using tracking as a tool for like education about your food and less as like a tool for restriction? And oftentimes the answer is no. So it's very similar with the scale. Somebody will say like, do I have to step on the scale? It triggers like me, obsessing about the number on the scale. And I say, well, that's more about like your relationship with the scale and with that tool. It's not the tool itself. A scale is just, it measures weight, right? We've talked about this. You can choose to use that tool how you want. And unfortunately, you've kind of subconsciously trained yourself to be obsessed and think this is like the only tool, but it's just one of the tools. So instead of not tracking at all, I've had way more success with clients talking them into tracking actually. And it depends on a lot of factors, like how quickly we jump into that. For some people, we do it right away. They're ready. They believe everything I say. I'm like, well, here's all the reasons we might want to. And they're like, awesome, I'm on board. Other people need time, right? But most of the time, majority of the time, if I can get somebody tracking for 30 to 60 days, that is enough time with the right coaching and the right mindset shift. That's enough time for them to see it as a tool and learn how to use it as a tool instead of something to be reliant on. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. I also think that there's a lot of huge, massive amount of benefit to eating mostly whole foods, right? So even if you're not tracking, you can still be on track nutritionally. And again, depending on where somebody is, you can make tons of progress just by viewing your food as fuel for the energy that you're going to be expelling through your workouts. And I think that if I were to compare like one in each hand, and regardless of the weight they have to lose, and I'll be curious to see if you agree with me on this one, regardless of the weight that they have to lose, let's say it's a fairly lean, average individual that just wants to lose a little bit more body fat or whatever. If the choices are between tracking rigidly, but being a little bit more flexible where those calories and protein and stuff's coming in terms of food quality and process, et cetera, or not tracking, but eating tons of whole foods, really thinking about this, and the tracking is coming with a little bit more of a restriction mindset. Whereas this person over here in this other scenario is eating almost completely whole foods. They're viewing it as fuel for their training. They're training very hard. I would rather that happening, regardless of what the calories are, because I think that the trickle benefits of that are going to be more beneficial than being really rigid about tracking.
So you're saying just in general, not like if somebody has like a little bit of weight to lose, but just in general between the two.
In general, between the two, for a fairly average individual, I would say they'd have better results not tracking with that mindset than tracking with the wrong mindset and not the greatest food choices.
Yeah, definitely.
Because what I'll see sometimes too is people tracking, and they get so good at it, almost like it's like a strength and a weakness. They get so good at it that they find themselves steering away from whole foods because they're hard to account for. So they're like, oh, I just need to eat more processed foods. I need to eat more packaged things that I can scan the barcode and know that it's accurate, even though we know that it doesn't mean it's accurate. It's just that it's written down. You know what I mean? Like you even see that start to happening. You're like, well, whoa. We're kind of going against the whole, like the point of this, right?
Yeah. The other thing too is if you have an issue with tracking because of that, restriction mindset, just track your protein. Just pay attention to the protein because that's more about adding and getting the protein in instead of like not getting, it's different. So focusing on just tracking that part of it can help. Just so you can see also how much protein is in things and how to get that amount of protein in a day. Because that, once you get used to that, it gets a lot easier once you can see, what 6 ounces of chicken looks like or whatever.
Exactly. And there's lots of ways to like do that. I think the thing with tracking apps is it just makes it so convenient because you can just look up
Mm-hmm.
things and then enter them in and it does the math for you.
Yeah.
Um, but you could also, for somebody who really doesn't want to track, like you said, about like getting protein in is really important. So paying attention to the numbers of protein or the grams of protein that you're getting, I would say like weighing your food, I think is something everybody should do,
Yeah.
honestly. Like regardless of whether or not you track it and put it into an app and try to like stick to calories or whatever, getting a food scale, like I think everybody should have a food scale because like you said, what does 4 ounces of chicken actually even look like?
Yeah.
Right? What does 50 grams of an avocado actually look like? I think that that is really, really, really crucial for people to understand actual portion sizes.
How much is a tablespoon of peanut butter? That one always
Right.
screws people up.
Totally. Yep. Scooping it out and watching what the weight is, I think
Yeah.
is so massively helpful. And then if that person has a coach or like if I have a client that's not tracking, but is using kind of more of that method, you
Mm-hmm.
can tell them, try to get 4 to 6 ounces of whatever protein you choose for dinner, try to get 4 to 6 ounces of it. And that's kind of more like a meal plan almost, but it's more like a meal structure. Like, hey, we're going to eat 3 times a day for meals, 2 snacks at each meal. I want you to have 4 to 6 ounces of the protein. If they're not tracking, if they're not using an app to gather that data, at the very minimum, they can have a food scale and they can measure that out to know that they're getting that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've had, in the past with clients that don't have a food scale and they send me pictures of their 6 ounces of chicken. And I'm like, dude, that is like a finger. That's like a finger of chicken. Like that is
Yeah.
not.
6 ounces is a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing that if you're competitive like me and you have like you want to like gamify it or like try to hit certain numbers or whatever, I find that the app that we use with where it tells you the micronutrients you're getting in food
Mm-hmm.
helps me a lot make better food choices because I'm trying to get all of my micronutrients, which means I have to eat whole foods to get those. I mean, you don't have to. There are sometimes added, like certain things are fortified or whatever, but it's always better to get that stuff from the whole foods. So trying to get all of that in, it makes me want to eat whole foods to hit all those numbers.
Yeah. Yeah. I know what you mean. So we use MacroFactor
Mm-hmm.
and I really like that app. And yeah, it has all the micronutrients. And you look at that and I'm like, oh, okay, I have like 300-ish calories, to
Yeah.
eat today. Ooh, what should I have? And I'm like, man, I've already hit my protein. I'm pretty good on fiber. Maybe I'll have some Doritos. And then I go over to that and I'm like, my vitamin K is at like 10%. This is unacceptable.
Need
What
some
is vitamin
spinach.
K? I'm going to eat 300 calories of spinach and carrots. Not really. But yeah, when you start seeing that, I'm like, oh crap, my iron is low. Like
Yeah.
consistently. So one day, I don't know how you are, but every once in a while, like having days or whatever. But when I go back through, I'm like, oh no, I'm like consistently low in iron.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
The one I'm always low in is vitamin E. I don't get enough vitamin E, which is in mostly, nuts and seeds and oils and, things like that. And I don't eat a lot of that stuff. So I don't get enough of that. And then for some reason, riboflavin. I don't know. I don't know. It's like it's there. It's close. It's like 72% or something, but
Unacceptable amount of
yeah.
riboflavin.
Everything else is good though. Yeah, and choline. I always need some more choline.
Choline.
Yeah.
That's so funny. I haven't really consistently tracked in a while, so I'm really off with those numbers.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
I
I mean, a
haven't been
ton of Whole
either.
Foods. I'm just like pounding like the sweet potatoes and grains and even like lima beans and broccoli and spinach and all the fruits like at the grocery
Yeah.
store. I'm like, what's in season? I'm snagging it all. And
Good.
yeah,
So you're good.
really packing it in. So I think I'm good. I do need to eat more like nuts and nut butters and stuff though. I tend
Yeah.
to be really low in fat anyway. And
Mm.
then I'm trying to get more of my fats from
I think I eat
plant-based sources.
more meat than you do, so I get from there. But then that's saturated fat. But I get plenty of fat. I don't know where it comes from. I eat
You
chia
eat
seeds.
I don't know if you eat more meat than me, but you eat higher fat meat than me. You eat a lot of beef.
I do. Yeah.
I love chicken thighs, so I get fat from there. I love salmon. I
I eat
am
salmon.
obsessed with salmon. I like dream about it. I love it so much.
I'm not a fan. I just eat it because it's good for me, but it's not my
Mm.
favorite thing. So I'll have it once a week, usually.
I have salmon once a week too, but I would have it more than once a week
It's also
if I
very
could.
expensive.
That's the reason I don't have it more than once a
Yeah.
week. We buy the big fillets from Costco, but here in Korean
Yeah.
Costco, they're like twice the amount of money that they are in the States.
Mm.
It's like $40 for a big fillet, for those big fillets, but I cut it in
Wow.
half. So one is, and so I get two big ones, and then I cut them all in half and freeze them. So it's one big fillet, one half of a big fillet per week. But
Yeah.
then that feeds us for dinner. And then usually me, I'm the only one that eats salmon leftovers. Thank goodness, because if my family ate them too, then I'd be mad because I want it all to myself. So it usually gives me like two servings for lunches. So
That's
I
good.
guess I eat it 3 times a week then, because I have it for dinner and then I
That's
usually have it
true.
for 2 lunches.
I have it for one lunch usually, so I have it twice, I guess.
There you go.
I just started my subscription of Butcher Box again. I'll go on
You
it and it'll
did?
go off. Yeah,
Ah.
I've had it before, and then it gets like too expensive. We because meat, like for beef, we get a cow every year. So not every year, but we always have beef because we'll buy it local. We'll get like a whole cow and all of the meat from that. So that lasts us a
Mhm.
while. So I don't really need beef as much, but their chicken is so much better, and their salmon and all of that other stuff. But they had a deal where you get free fillets
Yeah, I saw that.
for a year or something, and I don't get that with my cow, so I love filet.
Awesome.
Filet is the best. So yeah.
That's awesome.
And this isn't a sponsor or anything. I'm just talking.
I was going to say not sponsored. I thought of something else just now that is a fairly new development. Is my 10-year-old daughter told me today that she wants to be a vegetarian, which I'm not surprised about.
Is
But
this like a political thing?
yeah, it's because of Obama. No, I'm just kidding. It felt right. You can take that as a negative, as a positive. Like I gave nothing away. No, I don't know. It's not political. Unless you consider animal welfare political, Laura. I'm just kidding. No, this has not surprised me. She's talked about this before, so this isn't like out of the blue, but the discussion we had was unique, more unique than we've had in a while. She is very, like, she's got a great palate. She loves like farro salads and vegetables, and she just charcuterie boards is like her dream. She loves like just like she's got a really good palate. She eats all kinds of vegetables. But when it comes to meat, she's always been like a little bit finicky with meat. And if anything is even slightly like off with meat, like you know how sometimes there's like white, it's almost like the liquid that cooks and it's kind of white on like chicken. Like if that's on it, she freaks out. If it's like oily, she doesn't like it. If there's any like fat on the beef, she's like won't eat the whole thing even if you cut the fat off. The only thing she's good about is fish, like fish and seafood. She's good, but like any other meat, she's also an animal lover. She also like wants to own a farm one day, and she'll go back and forth. Like one minute she'll say like, "Oh, I'm vegan," but then we'll like make steak tacos, and she's like, I'm going to eat that because I really like that. And it's like, well, that's not. So there's been like a little back and forth with like understanding. But today she literally said to me, she's like, there's something I want to talk to. And we just got back from a vacation where we stayed on a farm, and there were literally cows on the property, like eating grass in front of our door while we were like having breakfast. And she got to milk the cows and see the babies eat from their moms. And so she was kind of in this mindset right now. And she said, I really think that I want to be vegetarian. And I said, okay. And she was like, well, one thing though, is that I don't really know the difference between vegan and vegetarian. So I told her what the difference was. And then she was like, okay, yeah, I think vegetarian because I don't want to eat actual animals. And I said, okay, well, how do you feel about why? So she's like, well, and she told me like, you know, my reasoning that I try not to eat a lot of beef and pork because like cows and pigs are really smart. And so that's, you know, opinion statement or whatever. But That was one of her reasons. But then she was also like, and I just had this experience where I watched like the animals, um, I fed them and I milked them, and I just can't imagine like now turning my back on them and eating them. I was like, okay, so and then she talked about factory farms. I don't like the idea of factory farms and how they treat the animals. And I was like, okay, let me ask you this. I was asking a lot of questions to try to get to like
Yeah.
help guide her and what she should do. I said, let me ask you this. Would you be more open to eating cow or pig if it was raised on a farm and like had a really good life and was like killed like, humanely? And she thought about it for a second. She said, no. I was like, okay. How do you feel about birds? Like chicken, turkey? She was like, I mean, they're kind of dumb, so I don't really care that much, but I do kind of care. So yeah, no birds. And I was like, okay, how about fish and seafood? She was like, well, they're really dumb. And so it was like going through like the intelligence of the animals. Ultimately, she concluded, yeah, I really want to eat fish. I know it's really good for me. I love shrimp, although I don't want to give that up. I was like, okay, so there's a word for that. It's called pescatarian. Yes. So I was like telling her what that was. And I was like, okay, I totally, as your mom and the person who cooks the food and buys the food, I have one rule and one suggestion, like two things that, we're totally willing to support you on this. I'm happy to do it. I totally understand where you're coming from. I love it. Oh, she loves tofu and stuff like that. So I love it. Two things. The rule is that if you're going to cut out food from either what we make or from your diet or whatever, you have to be responsible enough to analyze what you might be missing out on and how to fill that in. And I was like, for example, you're getting rid of a lot of things that have protein. So if we make dinner and the protein is beef or the protein is chicken, you have to be responsible enough, because she'll just eat the veg, she'll just eat the spinach and be like, I had dinner. And I'm like, that's not dinner. Which a lot of people would be like, my kid won't eat the spinach. No, she's like, that's all she'll eat. It's like the spinach and the mushrooms. But so I was like, and she said yes. And I was like, all right, so if we always have a couple different varieties of cans of beans in the pantry, are you fine with always being open to like warming up a can of beans and having that as your protein? She's like, yes, absolutely. I was like, okay, great. Tofu, great. I'll always make sure it's there if you're open to like making sure that you're filling that in. And then I said, and the suggestion I have is to just not tie yourself too strongly to a label. And she was like, what do you mean? I was like, well, I mean, there's a word, pescatarian, but a lot of people get really like obsessive and like with labels, like labeling themselves. And I think I didn't say this part to her, but especially at her age, there's like a lot, like kids and preteens and teens, they always want to like assign themselves to these labels. Well, I'm this and I'm that. And she's going to do it and I can't avoid it. But it was generally like, try not to stick to a label. Like if you find that this way of eating makes you feel better, that's fine. But if we have steak tacos one night and you haven't had it in a while and you really want to indulge, like that's okay too. You don't have to worry about like, just make sure you're making the decision for you and not anybody else, and don't feel like you're being judged or et cetera, et cetera. So it was an interesting discussion. So then she even asked me like, well, can you talk to Papi about this? Because I feel like sometimes, when we have chicken for dinner and he'll get upset with me if I don't eat the chicken. I'm like, well, again, it's because you're just Xing out like a food group that your body actually needs. And if you go get some beans or some tofu, then that would be fine. But yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah. B12 too. If she eats dairy, she'll get that, but
yeah,
she might have to supplement with that because it's something you need daily.
Yeah. It's funny because my best friend is vegan, and I'm always talking about like stuff like this, like you need protein and vitamins and blah, blah, blah. And she always has supplements. She's really good about that. And she eats a ton of protein. She eats a ton of plant-based protein. So she's got a really great diet. But she she just had a baby. So she'd been in the doctors and getting blood and stuff like that. And she said her vitamin B levels were like really high. And she doesn't even really supplement. She'd been really loose on her supplements lately. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was interesting. She said her vitamin B12 was pretty high, even though she doesn't eat any meat.
You can only get it from meat or dairy.
I don't know.
It's not in plants.
Well, she eats eggs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she eats eggs. And I think you're going to have to tell me what you think of this. Everybody like processes. I mean, you have a general way that you like, process food and absorb and et cetera. And maybe she's just better at processing and absorbing and holding on to B12, like where some people might not be.
It's one of the water soluble ones, so you don't store it the same way. You don't store a lot of it. You have to eat it every day.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But I don't know then. Maybe she had supplemented recently. She had it in, or she had
I don't know.
Leave it to you to know offhand which ones are water and fat soluble vitamins. Yeah. Thanks for listening. Deadlifts and Pizza. See you next week.
Bye.